Hello everyone. It's Friday again, so let's do another Friday reads. I had quite a good reading week, so yeah, let's just get into it. First of all, I read two of my Booktube prize books, so those were the last two. I'm finished with the round. I have submitted my results, so yeah, that's great that I finished that. And then I read another 3 books on top of that. So the first one is A Thousand Ships by Natalie Haynes, and this is a retelling of Greek myths from the point of view of women. And this is basically all I wanted the Silence of the Girls to be, but it wasn't. So it goes through different myths and different women, different people. Every chapter is from a different woman's perspective, and well, of course there are several chapters for each person, but yeah, it was great. It was very sassy at points, and it was also very well written. I think my favorite perspective was Penelope's from Ulysses, because in all the original and the retellings she's always like, oh, she has all these men trying to marry her because Ulysses has disappeared, but she still remains faithful and she wants Ulysses to come back, and that's about it. But here she's not forgiving him for leaving her there. She's not forgiving him for sleeping with other women, and we see all that, and the only reason that she remains faithful is that she just doesn't want to be with the other men. But yeah, so that was great. There's also the perspective of several of the Trojan women. Once Troy was conquered by the Greeks, there were some nymphs and some goddesses. It was a bit of everything. Also the myths, it was not just focusing on the Trojan War or something specific like that. It was a bit of all the legends, I would say. Well, maybe not all, but many of the legends, of the famous ones. And it was great. I would really recommend. I really enjoyed that one. Then the next one I finished was Decolonising the Mind by Ngugi wa Thiongo, and I also loved this one. I have read now 3 books by Ngugi wa Thiongo. The first one I thought it was okay. The second one is probably my favorite book of all times, and this one I really enjoyed as well. This one is a non-fiction, sort of a collection of essays that he wrote about African literature and how it is very influenced by the Western standards of how literature is supposed to be. So for example, he talks of the difference of what he calls Afro-European literature and African literature. He calls Afro-European literature those that are, even if it's written by African authors, but are written in European languages, so French or English or Portuguese. He calls that Afro-European literature, and then African literature is literature written in African languages. And on that he mentions that The Devil in the Cross, and it's one of his books, and he wrote it in Gikuyu, and it was translated, and that made me even more eager to read that book, because I don't know, it's cool that it was written in his mother tongue. He also talks about the fact that African literature is mostly oral. All the stories and all the fables and all the folklore is mostly oral tradition, and that is not taught in schools, because in schools normally we consider that if something is not written down, it's not worth it in a way, and how that has damaged African literature a lot. So he he makes the case to embrace African literature and see how great it is. And I just think it was a great way to explain things, and he made a lot of points that I didn't think about before. So yeah, that was great. I really, really liked it. And then the last one I finished was House of Ashes by Monique Roffey, and this is leftover from my Caribathon TBR and the books that I had for Caribathon. And this one is set in an imaginary Caribbean island, and basically it tells the story of a failed coup of the government. So it starts with this group of people entering what they call the House of Power, which is basically like the parliament, I think, or the house where the prime minister lives, and it tells the story of what happened inside, and how they got some of the politician hostages, and yeah, basically what happened with that. And then at the end it also goes 23 years later and shows what happened to those men that went into the House of Power. And it also explores like why would they want to do that, and all the corruption that happens in some of these governments and things like that, and also the position of such an island in a more global context. I think it was very well done, and I really enjoyed the book. Enjoy for a kidnapping hostage story. I don't know if it's the right word, but I thought it was really, really well done. So yeah, I was quite happy with everything that I read this week. And then the things that are in process, of course, I'm still reading the Les Miserables. I'm almost done with the third book, so that is more than halfway through. It's really long audiobook, but I hope I can finish it next month. And yeah, I'm enjoying that. And then the other thing I'm reading at the moment is A Spark of Light by Jodi Picoult. I'm about halfway through, and this one is, funny enough, another hostage story. I didn't quite know that when I picked it up, but now I know. And this one is basically of a man that goes into an abortion clinic and starts shooting and taking the people in there hostage, and it follows his story and the story of the people inside the abortion clinic, why each one of those people were there, and also the policeman that is negotiating, what is his backstory as well. Yeah, the story is fine. The writing is a bit clunky in my opinion. I also don't particularly like the structure. It doesn't work so well for me, because we start sort of from the end of the hostage situation and walk back to why all those people were there. But in the first, I think it's the first or the second chapter, something quite dramatic happens, and it's just left like that. And I think at the end it's gonna be solved, but why would you do that? Like, you either just tell the story of these people, or you solve it and then you tell us the backstory without having to have that cliffhanger there. I don't know, it was, in my opinion, it's a bit weird. And yeah, and also of course it's about an abortion clinic, so there's a lot of talk about the pro-life and the pro-choice streams, and I think that's a bit stereotypical. Like, it's very clear cut, and it's very it's explained a bit like simplistically. So yeah, that's a bit not what I was hoping for. But I have to say I didn't have like the hugest I didn't think that this was going to be a great book. I just chose it because I had been mildly interested in it for a while, and it fitted one of the prompts of the readathons I was doing, so I thought I'll give it a try, and my library had it available. But yeah, it's just okay. And then for next week, so next week is the reading rush, and even though I always find the prompts in the reading rush not the most interesting or appealing, they are usually very broad because it's supposed to bring the whole community together, but at the same time they're a bit superficial and broad. But I want to participate anyway because everyone is participating and I feel FOMO, so yeah. So yeah, I think I will be vlogging that, so you'll see what I plan to read there. I think I managed to cover all the prompts with 2 books, so I can read those 2 books and then whatever else I fancy. The other thing I'm going to read next week is The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, and this one is for my book club, which is meeting on Sundays next week, so 26th of July. So I need to read that one. I think I'm going to start that one as soon as I finish A Spark of Light. So yeah, I think that was all that was in my list. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought about it, or what have you been reading this week. I would love to know. And until next time, see you.